Well, hello, Mama. Jessyka Coulter here. We are starting a new series this week, all about those agreements, all about those contracts that you want to create between you and your teen. These are especially important at the start of a new school year and a new semester. So, as we're in August, I know a lot of families are in back to school mode. Let's start with homework. Okay, this is something very, very important that you and your teens need to be on the same page about now. Okay, one of the worst things that can happen is after those first quarter grades come out, or even if second semester starts, and you try to backtrack. You try to have that discussion with your son or daughter and say, hey, things aren't going well, or okay, what do we need to do differently? Okay, let's figure out what we need to agree on now, so that way the whole school year goes really, really well. It's easy to kind of tweak things. If we need to make some slight changes, very, very hard to create something brand new in the middle of a semester or even the middle of the school year. So let me know, is this something that you do? Have you had a homework discussion with your child? Some kind of agreement, some kind of contract even that's already been signed, created, all that, let me know down below. And if this is brand new to you, you're like, Jessyka, what is this whole homework thing? Definitely stick with us. And even if you do say yes, I'm curious, at the end of the video, some of the things I'm going to share are these things that you included in that contract, in that agreement. If not, would love to meet with you and your teens one-on-one for a free consultation, and would love to give you some extra tips with my Homework Buster. There's a link in the description to grab that. All right, let's talk about this. Okay, you've answered where you are in this homework contract kind of agreement thing. I hope that when you do decide to do this, you are going to have a discussion with your teen about schedules. Okay, one of the most important things that you can include in that agreement with your teen that you really need to be on the same page with, no matter if you have a middle schooler, high schooler, or even college student, but especially if your kids are living at home with you, is we need to know what days and what times that homework is happening. Okay, if your child tells you, Mom, between school and basketball practice and violin lessons and all this other stuff that happens on Mondays, I'm just not going to have time for homework. Okay, it's probably going to be like, come home, get stuff, go to practice, come home, go to dinner, go to practice, come home, shower, go to sleep. Okay, like some days it's going to be like that. Depending on how busy your child is, depending on where you live, where school is, all of that stuff. And good or bad, mamas, you have to be okay with that. Okay, if your child says, hey, I can't do homework on Mondays, it's not up to you for them to figure out, okay, well, this is due on Tuesday. You said no homework on Mondays. Now when you can do this thing that's due on Tuesday, you came to that agreement. Okay, this part of this growing up thing is allowing your teens to be more independent, to let them problem solve, to figure out, okay, I knew about this thing on Friday. It's due on Tuesday. I don't do homework on Mondays. Okay, then your child has to make the time between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to do it, or even his last resort, Tuesday morning before school, or even more last resort, like study hall during school on Tuesday before the class. Okay, so that's number one, is have that discussion with your teens, agree on the days, agree on the times homework is going to be done. Now, the reason we want some kind of a formal agreement, some kind of formal contract created between you and your children is so that way, if you say, hey, are you doing homework? And it's a time that your teens have not agreed to it, they're not going to be required to do it because that's not what they agreed to. But the opposite is also true. You notice it's 4:00 on Wednesday. Teens aren't doing homework. You don't have to make a big deal about it. You can just, bring up the contract if you want to, or even just kind of show it on the calendar, however you guys decide to enforce it. And they're like, hey, it's 4:00. What did we decide on 4:00 on Wednesdays? And you can just leave it at that. Okay. That leads us to the second part of an important homework contract, homework agreement, whatever kind of we're calling this as we go. But definitely talk about those expectations sooner rather than later. Okay. You can definitely, as a parent, have requirements, have expectations about grades, about late work, about missing assignments. Okay. You can totally do that. And I encourage you to do that. Okay. Because your teen can do the homework in like 5 minutes and just put random stuff down. Or your teen can spend, the 30 minutes it really takes and make effort, do the best possible, seek out help, look at notes, figure it out until it's figured out. Okay, those are two very different ways of doing the assignment. So definitely be clear with your teen. What is it that you expect when it comes to grades, when it comes to homework? Okay. Now, as to late work, missing work, that's going to kind of depend on the teachers. Going to depend on the district itself, because some schools have a policy. Some schools are, like, it's whatever the teachers want to do. It just depends. So you've got to know what that is. Your team needs to know what that is. And then there has to be some kind of agreement. Okay. It can be that, you're not okay with late work. And me as a study skills tutor, I definitely don't like teens to ever need to rely on late work policies. But things happen. And with missing assignments, sometimes your team just doesn't turn it in. It's done, but it didn't get turned in. And then there are times, for whatever reasons, things didn't get submitted online. We all know how fun technology can be. Other times, good or bad, unfortunately, we've all lost papers. And when you think about your teen's teachers, they probably have an easy 30 kids, if not, triple digits, if not more. That's a lot of paper to keep track of, especially if your children's teachers are taking it back and forth between school, home, wherever they do their grading, wherever they do their lesson planning. So have some plans, have some discussions made about grades and late work and missing work. Okay, you can decide, hey, I'm going to check your grades randomly once a week. And if there's missing assignments, we're going to have a problem. Or we're going to agree that, no late work in this particular class, because we're deciding this is the class you're struggling with the most. And this is what we care about the most, because we know if we can get you doing well in this class and figuring out processes that work really well, it's going to carry over to other classes this year, let alone in the future. Okay. Now, I know we're just kind of talking through things kind of quickly. I'm not able to really personalize this, so definitely giving you some strategies, some ideas to think about. Definitely want you to use sooner rather than later. If you've got questions, you got comments, drop them below. Better yet, ask me in a one-on-one consultation. Do know this is only the first discussion, kind of first agreement I encourage you and your teens to make at the start of the school year. There will be more ideas I'm sharing later this week. I want you to actually get to, listen to those videos, find out what those things are. So be sure to subscribe, be sure to follow, because I, Jessyka Coulter, CEO and founder of Ace Cookie Tutoring, will be sharing those throughout the week. So final thoughts here. Final thing I want to share when it comes to homework specifically, what kind of agreements to have. I really, really want you and your teens to talk about consequences and rewards. Okay, now for me, my goal is that every single student I work with, every teen out there, every person out there is internally motivated. So I caution you to be careful about bribery. I caution you to be very careful about tangible rewards. Okay, something I do with my Love to Learn Study Skills program. And when I teach motivation is to figure out, okay, what are some of those things at home that your teen really wants, or things, that your teen looks forward to, or, needs to have to feel accomplished, and incorporate that into the homework agreement. Okay, it could be something simple as, hey, your teen loves to hang out with his friends. But we all know that if your child spends too much time with his friends, the homework doesn't get done. But yet, if homework gets done, say at 4 o'clock, and your agreement is, hey, you have to be home by 9 on school nights, and, 4 to 9 is open, that can be part of the agreement. Or it could be, if you want to go the tangible route, again, I don't really recommend this, but it could be, you have this kind of grades, this amount of missing assignments, this whatever, when it comes to homework. By the end of the semester, I'll buy you this, or you'll get this. You can do that too. But it has to, again, be something in agreement, so that way your teen doesn't say you lied. It doesn't have to be something where your teen and you are fighting because you forgot, or your teen, is just pushing for more. Now, also think about the consequences. Okay. Again, the goal is here that your teen is learning how to be independent. Your teen is learning, okay, I'm getting older. I don't have to have mom remind me all the time to do homework. Your teen does not need you nagging. Your teen does not need you to be the alarm clock, the, one keeping track of the assignments. That's not your job. But what are those consequences? Okay. Again, have a discussion, ask your teen, you failed this class because you didn't do any of the homework. What does that mean? Well, for your high schooler, that's going to really hurt his or her GPA. For your middle schooler, probably going to still have to take that class, still going to hurt the grades. Unfortunately, a lot of people say grades in middle school don't matter, which always hurts me. You can watch a past video where I talked about that. But just know you got to be on the same page about these consequences, okay? Something I learned recently that, I've found very, very helpful and have had lots of parents I've talked to about it say, oh, that makes a lot of sense, is you want to tie the consequence into, the undesired behavior, okay? So essentially here, your teen doesn't do homework because he's on his phone all the time. Well, that makes sense to take away the phone. But your child doesn't do homework, and then, you guys have a family fun thing planned on Saturday afternoon. Well, the natural consequence is if the homework's not done, your teen needs to do homework before going to do the family fun thing on Saturday. So you definitely want there to be a correlation that's very, very obvious to you and your teen between homework, those rewards, the homework, the consequences. Okay, and remember those expectations. Okay, we got to be clear with those as well, because if your teen doesn't understand why am I being punished for this, why am I in trouble for this, because your teen didn't know, oh, mom isn't okay with C's on homework, or oh, mom expects me to get an A in this class. Again, got to make sure that what you're thinking is something that your teen knows for sure. Okay, we don't want any surprises for you or for your teen. So those are some highlights there. I have not created a template, for this homework agreement. There are lots of awesome ones out there. Can definitely point you in the direction of one if you're interested. Happy to create one as well. But remember, I do have that free homework buster available for you. So that is going to give you 5 tips to bust your teen's homework rejections. So as you're creating this agreement, and then maybe you still run into any problems, or maybe you need some inspiration beyond what we talked about here in the video, definitely go to my website, go to that link, and snag that free download. So thank you for being here. See you tomorrow for the next discussion, next agreement that you need to have in place as soon as possible at the start of a new semester. Bye, mamas.